Driver, start your engine! In the beginning, stock cars outran the police to deliver the hooch to our ancestors. So sweet. Are you ready for a trip down victory lane, where Richard Petty's winnings were insane and Dale Earnhardt put everyone to shame? Canadian Junior Hanley is in the Hall of Fame. Live from Haldeman County, it's time for the Driver in Deep podcast. Are you ready?
Hello and welcome everyone to the Driver in Deep podcast with Mark and Alex, brought to you by wingnutsports.com. Hey Alex.
Hi Mark, how are you today?
I'm awesome. It's been a good week so far.
That's good. Well, it's been the last couple of weeks have been good. I mean, we've had a two-part interview with Alex Tagliani over the past 2 weeks, and the response has been amazing. So thanks to everybody for listening.
Yeah, it was definitely a great time with Tag. He sure is a great storyteller. And also, you were on Racetime Radio with Joe Sr. and Jr. Didn't want to forget to mention that over the weekend, talking racing. And it was great that they even brought up our podcast.
Yeah, it was really nice. Nice of them to bring it up and let me chat about it a little bit. Their show, Racetime Radio, can be found on channel 167 on Sirius XM on Sunday evenings. So if anybody has an opportunity to check that out, they should. And yeah, anytime, you get somebody that broadcasts for a living, bring up something that we do is quite an honor.
Yeah, no question about it. And if our listeners want to check it out, visit our Wingnut Sports Facebook page and we'll post a link to your interview there. But for now, how about we get to our guest, unless you want to talk about how awesome the Habs are beating out the Jets in 4 games straight.
Well, you got to give the Habs credit. They've done great. They're resting now, down to the Final Four. So, and you know what, I was thinking about it the other day. And out of all the teams from Canada that were in the 4-team round robin, if you will, the North Division, they're the only ones that have thousands of fans. So maybe it's the best thing that could happen was at least, when they play against the U.S. teams, they're going to have some people listening and watching.
Yeah, that'll be great. And it doesn't hurt that Carey Price is playing as good as he ever has.
No, absolutely. He's done really well. Well, let's get to our guest. Our guest today is definitely well known across Canada. Let's welcome the editor, co-publisher of Inside Track Motorsports News, and the co-owner and promoter of Canada's largest indoor racing and custom car show, Greg MacPherson. Thanks for joining us on Driver in Deep, Greg.
Oh, you're welcome, guys. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, Greg. It's Mark here. Thanks for joining us again. Inside Track Motorsports News is referred to as the official publication of Canadian Motorsport, which must be nice to hear things like that, but it didn't start there, did it?
It didn't. We started the magazine in 1997. So it came from myself and my 3 partners had worked at another magazine. I had started there in 1990, which I think was a year behind some of the other guys being there. It was a magazine called Performance Racing News, PRN. And that was my first job out of university. I'd worked summer jobs up in Algonquin Park fixing canoes and doing stuff like that. And 1990 was like 2008, one of those years where they didn't even have job fairs at school. Everyone was getting fired. So you got on. So one of my friends and future business partners, John Hopkins, he'd been a racing fan for his whole life, growing up at Mosport, and his family would take, weekend trips down to Watkins Glen for the racing and stuff. While I was up at Algonquin last summer, he had gotten on at this small racing paper in downtown Toronto. And I came back in the fall, and I kind of got just part-time work doing some stuff there with my U of T poli-sci degree. And it started to grow. Like, I started to go to the races. The magazine was growing. And then kind of reached a point where some of the guys who were the senior editors and writers also had jobs at, like, say, the Toronto Star. So the guy, his name was Bob Mitchell. And the magazine, PRN, started to get big enough kind of to the point where people had to make a call whether they wanted to stay with that or stay with their jobs at real dailies and real sports, papers with benefits and all that. So you can imagine which way they went. So before you knew it, David Weber, who's one of my business partners now, was he was our boss there, but it was owned by other people. And before you knew it, like we were working for David, and John was the editor, and I was the assistant editor. And just it started to grow. So we covered CASCAR, like Alex, and road racing everywhere, and a bunch of other stuff. And we loved what we did. And then about a year later, we added Rob Morton as the sales staff. And so the core team there, it was like David Weber, John Hopkins, myself, and Rob Morton. And we loved working with each other. And we're getting good at what we did. It was an exciting time. It was when the magazines transitioned away from, like, say, newsprint, and then we started getting to computer layout. That was just at the start of that. And but it was a funny thing. The healthier the magazine got, the more pressure came from the owners. It was kind of like the boot to the neck management style. So it was kind of untenable by 96-ish. And we just decided, like, this could go three ways. We could stay there, we could leave and fall on our faces, and leave and do well. So we took the leap. Like people say, like, oh, that was brave, but it really wasn't an option. It was like we weren't going to stay there. And so the one neat thing was that by that point, like, people in the community kind of knew us rather than people who ran the other company, because they didn't ever go to races or anything. So they knew us, and so when it came time to let people know, hey, here's what we're doing, that we had a lot of support, and people trusted us, knew we could kind of put a magazine together. Alex, for example, and we were wearing lots of hats just to do whatever you could do to get off the ground. So for several years at CASCAR, by that point, I had done the press releases for the CASCAR series for Tony Novotny, and it was nice. Like, I'd do the releases, I'd get a plane ticket to go down to, like, New Brunswick for Alex's big payday down there, things like that, and get to bunk in with Ron St. Clair. Yeah, so people kind of knew us. We were a client. Like, Alex was one of our first clients. We went press releases for him in the 93 AC Delco team in CASCAR, and we just kind of got going. We launched on Labor Day 97. So we had magazines at Delaware Speedway for it was CarQuest 300 at that point, or McCurley Mill, probably CarQuest by that point. And we did the event program for there was a big road race weekend at Mosport. We did it for that, and kind of hit the ground running. So that's how we got going, and that was 24 years ago.
I think that's great, because a lot of people, I mean, I do, of course, people that raced when I raced knew you guys when you were at PRN, but a lot of people now probably don't realize, you came right from school, started at PRN, ended up where you are now, and that's all people know for the most part. But, so you guys didn't know each other at the time?
I was in a fraternity with John, so that's how I ended up getting on with him. So we went to U of T. He was a year older than me, and so we lived in a frat. Like, I'm from Toronto, so it was a good place to live. Like, it wasn't like Animal House or anything, but it was, a lot of people who go to U of T, they just kind of live at home, and they commute, and they go downtown, and they come home at night, and it's more like high school than school. So anyway, I lived in this big old frat downtown, and got to meet a bunch of guys. One of them was John, and so we were buddies. So like I said, he had gotten in. He, as a racing fan, he found out that there was this small racing magazine at Yonge and Wellesley in downtown Toronto, and he got on at it. And then when I came back after putting the canoes away at the Portage store in Algonquin Park that year, it was like, well, I wonder what I'm going to do now. And like I said, everyone was getting fired at that point from their jobs, so it was just good to get on somewhere.
And besides John, then none of you other guys, Dave, Rob, anybody, didn't have any background in racing at all?
No. So Rob was a racing fan. He absolutely was. So he had gone to a lot of events. He was friends with this amazing photography team, Gridwork, Paul and Monica Strack. And Paul Strack used to be like the official photographer for the Players Racing team, and just unbelievable stuff. Rob's career before that, though, was in radio. He was like the station manager it was like CKO, it was an all news radio network across the country. And so he used to get them to carry the Indy 500 and things because he loved racing so much. But yeah, at a point, I think they shut down CKO. He was looking for something to do, and he ended up selling ads at PRM.
Gotcha.
Yeah, starting a new business can be very exciting and very scary. And when we started this Driver and D podcast, Alex told me about how great it was going to be. We're going to be rolling in money. It wasn't going to be hard at all. And
hey, Mark, our guest is laughing, so yeah, you know that.
Well, yeah, he knows it's not true. I guess I was a little naive at the time, but for you, obviously, it sure seemed to work out over the years, and that's great.
Yeah, no, it's been excellent. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like, didn't mean to laugh at you, but I guess the old joke: how do you make a small fortune in racing? Start with a big one. So
yeah,
but,
yeah.
Anyway, but no, it's gone well, and like I said, we had no choice. We had to go. The best option for all of us was to stick together, and we liked each other, and try and make a go of it. So it worked out, and just it's gone in different directions over the years. We do different things now, like with the show we've gotten into and such. But yeah, no, I wouldn't change a thing. It's been a good time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And you touched on it a bit. When I was at Avenue Motorworks, I left my job with the city of Brantford to venture off into this racing thing. And yeah, that's when, we had met prior to that when I was racing, but we ended up doing business right off the bat. Right when you started, it kind of coincided with one another. So it was kind of fun. We talked the other day on the phone about something else, and we started talking about that. And it was pretty cool to think back. And sometimes you forget about, when you were starting, or how you got going and who helped you. And you guys definitely helped me with different things, brochures and some ads and different things. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, it's amazing how long we've known each other, and that's one of the best things about racing too. Like, it's a small community. I write about people. You develop trust. I've known people for, like, some people for 25, 30 years now. No one will ever say I burned them on a story. No one will ever say that was off the record. You spun it the wrong way, or you weren't fair. So, like, I love going to the track. Everybody's a friend. I write about things. You have trust, and it's neat. It's not like politics where you're zinging somebody, you're waiting to get the quote that's going to make them look bad or whatever. It's the opposite of that. Like, I'll go, like, so many times, like, I'm on my own. I'm not with a team. I'm not with anybody. You end up, at a hotel after the day at the track, in the restaurant or the bar, and you're there with, there's Alex and his team, or you're like in Edmonton and it's, the Gibbons crew and, Wilcox and, Whitlock's team, or, so it's awesome to be able to know these people for so long, be friends, work, have a degree of trust, and then hang out and have a drink at night or some food.
Yeah, I can't believe you never brought up the city of Calgary. That one seems to be a popular one every time we start talking about good times.
Yeah, it's reoccurring for sure.
That place just shut, that Ranchman's. Remember going across from the Carriage House Inn? Oh my gosh. And the girls with the holsters with the booze pouring it down your throats.
I remember going there a few times. I don't remember coming back very much.
I felt bad because you guys had to race the next day.
That's a whole other episode.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to date myself a little bit here. When I went to university, my first year of university, I happened to buy my first computer, which was a Tandy 1000 HX, which nowadays wouldn't be as powerful as my watch. But that is when I think I understood how important it was to keep up with the times. And in the news magazine business, it sure has changed over the past decade in particular, everything going digital and so on. How have you guys been able to adapt, and what has been the biggest difference between what you do now compared to when you first started?
So when we first launched, we were putting out a large tabloid-style newspaper, basically. You called it a magazine, but it was tabloid print. And it was, who won the CASCAR race at, Race City. Like, it was like Whitlock and Wade Lee or whoever, battling it out there. And some of it was on TV, but it was hard to find. So at that point, you were still able to deliver some news and pictures and things, sort of be first with things that happened a little while ago. So, we've embraced the web and our different things. So we try and look at it like an integrated brand. So to this point, the magazine, for the most part, is filled with features, profiles, columns, tech, so that it's minimized the issue of timing. Like, a lot of it you could still pick up in 6 months and go like, oh, there's an interview with so and so. It's still it's timely. It's not dated. Meanwhile, in the magazine, in the websites, we will post press releases and results and galleries and that type of thing. So, one of the things that we probably wouldn't have done that we've done during the pandemic slowdown is we've done a full revamp on our websites. We're just about to launch a transition from an older Joomla platform to WordPress, and we're actually going to put a big classified website or engine on it so racers can sell their stuff. And so just whether you go to the print magazine, you go to the website, our social media feeds, like it's all our stuff, but the information or content is suited to the platform.
Yeah, definitely it's changed for sure. I agree. I think you guys have done a great job keeping up with the ever-changing times, which, it doesn't matter what business you're in now. It's the same. Nothing stands still anymore, but I'm sure it's going to be quite different 5 years from now. So I'm looking forward to where that all goes. And I also want to talk about your car show, Greg, that we talked about your stuff. First off, before we get out of the newsy publications, communications, and write-ups that you guys have done over the years, I know for a fact there's got to be some things that you come across doing a story or following a story or chasing down a story and you couldn't put it in your magazine, but I'm sure there's something that I know you've done a lot of work with Biederman and Hanley down in Florida, covering Daytona, Speed Weeks, all those things. So what's some of the stuff that you couldn't print?
Yeah, like there'll be stories that I would be involved in, and then I just didn't know if they'd be of interest or not. So yeah, this is probably a great place to tell them. So legendary guys like Hanley and Biederman. So for years, it's funny. One of the hardest interviews ever at a track is Junior Hanley, just because he's so focused, and you got to respect that. It works. Like, I sit here working, no one's coming bugging me, going like blah blah about something else. Like, that's his office. He's at the track. So for years, one of the highlights as a Canadian publication, I go down to Speed Weeks, and I'd go to the 500 and different tracks. But the highlight in terms of our readers and my priority was the Canadians at New Smyrna and Volusia, if they were there. But and usually the top guy there was Junior Hanley, so he'd be in multiple classes and always winning, either dominating or up front or winning a bunch. And so that was all on the heels of the famous battles and feuds with Biederman and Hanley, who used to be buddies. But so it was so hard at the track to get any time with Junior. So I invariably end up skipping the Busch race, your Xfinity race now, on the Saturday, just so I could get to the track early enough before Junior had his game face on, and he'd actually spend a bit of time chatting, and I could get some quotes on how his week had gone so far, and then if he'd won on the Saturday night in the finale, I'd have to try and get something after the race, but otherwise I could get the story if I skipped off there. So one time I was down there, and Don Biederman was there, and I'll tell you another story with him, but we'd had not a run-in, but he had an issue with me prior to that, and I'll tell you about that. But by this point, we'd already patched up, and we had already started Inside Track, and Don loved what we were doing in terms of covering Canadian racing. But we were on the wall, and it must have been the Saturday night, and I remember standing beside like Al Shepstone and another short track guy from up here, and probably like Joe Chisholm from Sauble, and we're standing there, and Don Biederman's like 2 over from me, and it just still ate at him that Junior was winning and so good, and there's so much attention on him, and
probably Donnie wasn't racing, right? Because
he wasn't racing; he was done by then. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that was when he was done.
Yeah, he was just like torturing himself. But by that point, he was just down there watching, or I don't know if he was helping anybody, but it's just he's standing there watching Junior win again. It's eating him out, and he's just like, it's checker flag. Junior goes across. I forget if it was Danny Knowles' car. That was a wild story. Like the poor gentleman, he was passing from cancer, asked Junior to drive his modified at New Smyrna, and I think he was gone in a matter of weeks or whatever, but there's pictures of them in Victory Lane, Junior driving the car and Danny Knoll from Western New York, his modified there. But boy, it bugged Don. So Don, loud enough so I could hear it, goes, "Oh, and great. The whole effing magazine's going to be filled with Hanley." Like, and I go, "Yes, it is." Anyway, but we were good by then. But going back to the even further ahead, and sort of being hard to talk to Junior. There was one point when he lived in Campbellville. I think it was near the end of his ACT days. But gorgeous house, and he had his own shop there at the base of the ski hill, and just so nice, and he was like top of his game. And however it happened, he actually invited me out there. I asked for an interview. He invited me out there, he and Rita, and he ended up sitting in their nice living room, and he just talked and answered questions and kept going with stories, which was the opposite of what it was like at the racetrack talking with them. They gave me photo albums to take home and scan and use for information, and I returned all those to them. It was so neat, and just not the way he is at a racetrack. And so it was a really neat story, and it talked about his times where reasons why he wouldn't race CASCAR, and I think he called Tony Novotny Hitler, which I think makes Tony laugh, a CASCAR. But he would tell a story, and he said something about Kim Wallace, and then he said something about, the scrap between he and Don was always more passionate on Don's side. I think Junior probably thought it was a shame, but what are you going to do about it? And so it wasn't like he was out to get him after the fact or anything. So I think he kind of felt badly about it and wish it hadn't have gone to where it did. But he said something like, if I walked into a restaurant and Don's got $100 steak in front of him on the table, and he saw me come in, he'd get up and walk out. But then on the other hand, like Junior told me, he said, "Oh, we used to be buddies and we'd work together so hard. We'd be at the shop in Oakville. They said it'd be so hot, they'd stink. They couldn't stand the smell of each other. When they needed a break, they'd go outside, spray each other down with the hose, and go back in and work some more." Like,
air conditioning back then.
Yeah, there you go. So he said that's what they were doing, and then they'd head off with their 2 cars and come back when they had no cars left, when they're all beat up and stuff. But so, like, I love that story. It was so cool with Junior. Like, I don't think he's opened up to a lot of people like that I know of anyway. So it was really cool. So then, must have been later that winter or something, you go down to the TQ midget indoor races in Niagara Falls, which we all did. It was like 3 times a year. It was like awesome. You get to see everybody again. It was some racing, tide you over in the winter. So Don Biederman used to help out Dan, one of the Mays. I'm trying to think. Danny May. So he'd help him in his TQ midget at the indoor races. And so at one point, I was kind of watching, hanging around, because Danny would run well. And Don looks over, and he goes, "Did you write that thing with Hanley?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I had to punch you in the mouth." And I said, "Why?" I said, I just wrote what he said, and he was actually quite nice about you. Like, he thought it was a shame. I said, and I'll interview you too. I'll write whatever you say. And Don said to me, he goes, "Oh, that ain't happening. I ain't talking unless it's for cash." Like, and I said, "Well, that's not going to happen. I've got no budget to pay people to write stories about them." So that was it. But eventually we patched up. He came down to our office when we launched Inside Track. We had lunch and a couple of things. And so I was glad we kind of finished on good terms before he passed. And he was a character.
Everybody softens up as they get older.
Yeah. I think he wanted to chat too. He was in love with the track that they built down in Moncton and thought it was laid out the right way and stuff. So kind of a weird reason, but he wanted to show it off and tell me about what he'd seen. And so we had lunch downtown one time, and he'd show me pictures of the track in Moncton. And I was glad we were getting along by the end.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. That is. Greg, when did you join the board of directors for the Canadian Motorsports Hall of Fame?
I'm thinking it must have been about 2 years now.
Okay.
Coming up on. Yeah, so there's a friend of ours, so Alex knows Joel Robinson really well. They do the TV broadcasts, like going back, he and his dad to CASCAR, and then now with the NASCAR Pinty series. So, Joel got involved with it a couple of years ago. And, it's sort of at the point, I think there's turnover. Like, you get some older guys in there, and people come to kind of the end of their line, so they're always looking for, younger blood or someone to, fill in. So I met Dr. Hugh Scully, who's the chairman, down at our booth at PRI. So I think probably one of the days. There was one day I was interviewing Alex in our booth about UCASA and what was going on there. And then not too long after that, I spoke. Joel brought Dr. Scully over, and we chatted and said, "Would you like to get involved?" And so they kind of accepted me, or whatever the process is, to join the board, and it's been kind of busy ever since. So I'm really enjoying it.
Oh, that's great. I've really been wondering how it is that Alex, ended up in. He's giving me the finger now.
There's that signal
in the Hall of Fame. So I might have my answer here. Obviously the experience has been great, as you said, and maybe you can tell everyone how they can nominate somebody that they think is deserving to be in the Hall of Fame.
Sure. So that's
right now too, Greg. Right?
It absolutely is. Yeah, it just opened up. So one of the projects I've been involved with since we started is a full website revamp there. So actually, right now, if you go to cmhf.ca, the lead rotator image is nominations are open, and click here. So on that page that it'll take you to, there's a description of the process, and then below that there's the actual online form. So we're only accepting them that way now, just so it's easier, because it guarantees all the fields get filled in. It forces people to attach some photos, but and there's actually also like the scoring matrix to let people know as they're preparing a nomination how it's scored by the nomination and the committees that are looking at it. So what someone's experience is, what their achievements are, how long they've been involved, those type of things. So it's all laid out pretty well for people to get a good idea about what's going to make for a successful application nomination.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, Alex, maybe we can nominate our friend Gibber to be there as a flagman.
Yeah, you fill that one up, buddy.
Yeah, okay.
Never know. Gibber may make it there someday.
Yeah.
For multiple reasons.
Yeah,
maybe
for
not
sure.
Because of flagging.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's like Alex. Multiple reasons, and you look at someone over that time and what they've done and the things they've been involved with. It's like, that's pretty neat. Like, been at the top of the sport, and then now, UCASA, what's been going on? What's been built there, and your hand in it. That's pretty impressive.
It's quite an honor, I'll tell you that. And the unfortunate part was the pandemic. We weren't able to celebrate it properly, but I think we will this year. So that's
my understanding. Like I for the last couple of years, the induction ceremony's been held during the Canadian International Auto Show down at the Convention Center in Toronto, and that's gone really well. And so that wasn't able to happen last year. We're still not sure. We don't know for sure this year. I think that's Plan A, but it's got to be determined. But I think there'll be, like, say, a double class treatment. So, Alex, the group that you're in with this year, and the ones who go in because of the nominations this summer, I think they'll all be honored.
Yeah, that'll be nice. Looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah.
I think Dr. Scully had called me and told me that's what they're hoping to do. So that was we'll see. Hopefully it all works out. I'm looking forward to it for sure. And it was quite an honor, honestly.
No, and it is neat. If you're like all the videos of the speeches and the inductions are all online. So to get a group of your supporters and family and team members, together and go down and be part of that night and get up and make the speech, recognizing everybody and talking in front of that neat crowd, like it is something. So I'm sure that'll happen for you, Alex.
Yeah, quite an honor for you, Alex.
Yeah, thank you. We talked, you're talking about the Canadian International Auto Show, and I said earlier I wanted to talk about your car show that you and your partners are involved in, which is called now Motorama. It hadn't started as Motorama. Initially, you folks had the Canadian Motorsport Expo, which was geared primarily towards racing, and I'm not sure how it evolved all of a sudden, but I think you knew that you needed to make a change, and how you guys have done it has really been incredible, and the growth has been strong. But now it's Motorama, and it's custom cars, hot rods, tuner cars. You have stereo stuff going on in the back room, and some motorcycles there. There's everything there, and it's really a heck of a show that we've missed out on for the past couple of years, of course. Well, not really. We're there in 2020, and we got sent home partway through, which was kind of crazy. That was right at the start of this crap. And yeah, that was quite the experience thinking back. But walk us through that, Greg. And I know obviously why you started the CME, but how did, you got going? Maybe it didn't have the growth you thought, and anyway, you found a way to make it happen, and how did it come about? Walk us through that.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny how things come full circle. For years, like with either PRN or Inside Track, we'd gone to the Performance World show, which is part of that show that's been like almost 50 years now. Motion, Performance World, Mega Speed, and now Motorama. So that's the show that's on the starting weekend of March break for the kids. So we'd always gone to that, and near the end of Performance World, we found, and what the racing people did, the racing kind of was getting smaller and smaller, put in a corner, less prominent. So gentleman associated with CTMP, Glenn Butt, sort of said, you know what, racing should have its own show. We're kind of getting squeezed out here at Performance World. And so he started a show called Canadian Motorsports Expo at the Congress Center, which is kind of nearby.
Right.
And he and his family were kind of the force behind that. I think we had a booth. I was on the panel with Chris Economaki the first year. He had like a media panel, and so I think he did that maybe 2 or 3 years, and it was going all right. But it was a small show, but it was racing community only. We thought it was a good idea, and I think it was kind of maybe starting to grow a little bit just beyond his means, or he needed some help and support to be able to continue it. And so we got involved with that and did that for a couple of years, and that was great. It was before the NASCAR season started, which now we're into. The season's already begun, the Cup season. So we had some neat guys come up. Like we had Richard Petty, Kyle Busch, Michael Waltrip, Carl Edwards, like all the top guys would come because we were a couple of weeks before qualifying at Daytona. So that was neat, and we get a good crowd, but it was kind of like a break even, affair, but we thought, it's good for racing, it's good for the community, we'll keep doing it. But in the meantime, the show that is the big March show that everyone's used to going to, that I think that was kind of going on hard times. So for whatever reason, so the International Center where we put on our show came to us and said the person putting on that Mega Speed show, that wasn't going to happen anymore, and would we like the opportunity to take our show, merge it into the March show at the International Center, and combine them, sort of bring the racing back into that show, but then take over the whole one. And we dealt with them for a couple of years at that point, and they were happy with the way we were putting on a show and kind of growing it. So that's what happened. So I think maybe last year was our 7th one of those, or
wow, already.
And the first year was kind of damage control. There were some people who said, corporate guys we dealt with, they're like, I swore I would never go to that show again. If I brought it up to my boss, I would get fired. But by the second year, that had all kind of gone away, and it was going well, and it was nothing but growth since. So leading up till last year, March 2020, about 2 weeks before our show, start of March, late February, we're kind of going like, ooh, this COVID thing, like coronavirus. Oh, I hope that doesn't impact us. And so we're prepared for a show, and we're doing setup on the Thursday night. I think that was the night when the NBA made the call that they were canceling their season. Yeah, and it was right. Like, oh man. And it's like,
well, it's funny when you said that, because I thought I was coming back that night. I'd set up early in the afternoon for Jukasa, and we heard that announcement. And I said to Sandy, I said, I might be heading back to Toronto tonight to pick up our stuff, but no, it didn't happen.
No, but the dominoes started falling, and then at that point it was like, oh man. So we had hand sanitizer stations, everything we could get together at that point. I think it was before masks were kicking in, really.
Yeah,
but
it was.
We had spacing. We usually have amazing programming on the stage with awards presentations, like Short Track Night of Champions, Drag Racing Night of Champions, panels of, hot rod guys and racing guys. Like Alex, you've been up there with the Binty series and stuff. But, so a lot of the things that put people in close contact, we canceled right off the bat, which was kind of too bad. But we just thought, what, people know the deal. They can come, you can come and go and not touch a person and stay 6 feet away. The double whammy was usually on the Friday we have like 150 school buses show up with all the kids. The shop teachers and automotive shop teachers bring all the kids in. So the province, the teachers were in a work to rule stage at that point. So I think 2 buses came. So it was the double whammy. It was COVID and the teachers that got us. And throughout the weekend, it was very strange. Like we had a good Friday, considering like the school kids didn't come. Saturday wasn't bad, but at some point, I think politicians were calling up the people who run the International Center and said, "What the hell is going on in your building? Why is that still on?" But meanwhile, you could still go down the road to Woodbine and gamble at the province's casino. But for some reason, someone told someone to shut us down. So that was the way it went. So we knew maybe like an hour before close on the Saturday, like close at 9, I guess. And we knew an hour before. And at that point, it was just a matter of how do we protect? We've got amazing cars in this building. You've got vendors with products. People have stores set up in front of the garages, doors that are going to go up and let people out. So they made the decision the only way to protect everybody's equipment and cars and things was to, as soon as everyone's out of the building on the Saturday night, just say what was going on. And Sunday morning, it's relaxed, come on in, but it's move out. We're not allowed to open on the Sunday. So that was it. And that's how it played out. No one's stuff got damaged. At that point, everyone was still hearing 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think all those poor vendors and they haven't been to a show. They haven't done anything since.
No, you're right. And I can remember, you're so right. It was so strange. And I felt bad for you guys. You're running around there, walking around, and I knew you were under a bunch of pressure and must have got asked 400,000 times what you're going to do and are we closing? And I probably only asked 100 times myself.
But you know what? You got to have a face. You got to have a smile on your face because I'm looking
Absolutely.
at you and you're a promoter. You bring in a monster show and you could have a monsoon all weekend and it's rainy.
Well, yeah.
And I'm like, I feel for you. And I'm like, I figured it would be a March snowstorm that would kneecap us. I didn't think it was a pandemic. But I'm like, you know what? It's just like it got us. It's like we're a promoter and the weather got us, but it's a plague.
It's funny you said that because I forget who was in the booth with me, our booth, and you were running around. You were stressed out. And I said, look at Greg. And the guy that I was with said, yeah. I said, that's how I look when it's raining.
Yeah.
But it was crazy, and like you said, I thought, you know what? We'll get out of here, go home, and race season starting up in May, and we're all good.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, here we are a year and a half later and still haven't started up.
And we are still scared about next March because it's the strangest thing. You watch the Indy 500. They're having the Detroit Grand Prix this weekend with tons of fans. You watch hockey games. You watch everything. The whole world's open. And today the city of Toronto is making a big deal because they can turn on water faucets outside so you can have a drink.
Wow.
It's
Nice.
like
yeah.
It's like I'm in bizarro land. And then like half of the people, who's got a check rolling in because those people are like, you know what? Let's keep it shut down. Don't go too soon. Let's just stay quiet. And it's like, what? Like, you stay home if you want, but let the rest of us get on with it.
Yeah, it's been tough. Hopefully, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel with this now, and getting things open can happen fast enough. And just getting back to Motorama again for a second, Greg, you guys have had some great celebrities visit during the shows there, and I have a multi-part question here. Is it hard to get these celebrity guests, or is it really just about the appearance fee for them? And who has been one of your favorite guests? And do you have any stories that you can tell about any of these celebrities?
I totally can. So it's funny, at this point, it's mostly easy because it's a small crowd of people who go around, the celebrities who are wanted. And with any one of them now, like whether it's Steve Darnell from Vegas Rat Rods, Courtney Hansen, like Jeff Lutz, Street Outlaws, like any one of them, if we want somebody else to come, we say, call that person, ask them about their time at the show. Like, how were they treated?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do they have fun? Whatever. So, our business card for that type of thing is just, here's the list of the people who've been here. Please call them. And so that's been relatively easy. The only person we ever tried to get was, and we spent a lot. I think Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch was a crazy amount of money, but you're thinking, okay, how can you not? So we had the same weekend, Kyle Busch and Michael Waltrip. And Kyle was insane money. Like, I don't want to say it, but like Alex would know like what it would cost to bring somebody to something like that. And it's like 3 or 4 hours. And the only one we ever joked about trying to get was Dale Jr. And I think we heard 100. And I don't even think he wanted to come for that. I think he had so few days off and so much money that he'd rather have a Saturday morning off than cart up to Toronto in February for no matter what the amount of money was. So that never happened. But yeah, and that was the one weird thing with this show this past year. It was finally, like, for the hot rod industry, the whale is Chip Foose.
Yeah.
And we had him. He was coming. And then, like, on the Wednesday, when there are people, or the Thursday, people are saying, like, oh, I think they're closing the border. I might not be able to get home. So they sent a very nice note saying, Chip won't be coming, which worked out for the best in the end. But we're for sure hoping he comes back. But
that'd be great.
Okay, here's the neatest one I ever had. The celebrity. It's really funny. For the most part, like when the guys come, you shake hands or you want to say hi or whatever. Like the Trailer Park Boys were fun. I know you've been exposed to them, Alex. Like awesome guys, good sports. I was on the phone with Ricky. There was a snowstorm that went through Toronto. They were supposed to come to promote their movie SwearNet. There was a snowstorm in Toronto on the Friday. Then it was going to hit Halifax on the Saturday. And so I'm on the phone with Ricky, like Rob Wells, and it's like there are no flights, everything. It's like cancel. And he says, did you ever call the Air Canada concierge? And I'm like, what is that? I've never heard of that. He goes, well, it's just a thing. Like, I think they kind of look after, people, he didn't say like special people or whatever, but it sounded like a high-end service at Air Canada that if you're important, there's someone on the other end of a call. So that's what happened. In the middle of a blizzard, I found on a website, it was like a catering website, this Air Canada concierge number. I'm like, oh, no one's going to pick this up. This lady answers the phone and she goes, bonjour, Air Canada concierge. And I said, okay, here, like in a nutshell, gave her the situation. These guys are supposed to be on stage in Toronto. They're in Halifax. Can you help at all? When she first talked to me, she had no idea who they were. Like, I think I was talking to a call center in Montreal. Like, might not be a thing there, the Trailer Park Boys. So about 2 minutes later, she comes back. Someone who worked with her knew who I was talking about and went, oh my God. So this lady comes back on. She goes, okay, I know who you're talking about. Like, here's the deal. If they show up tomorrow in like costume for Trailer Park Boys at Stanfield, like airport in Halifax, and they sign some autographs, they are on what is called priority standby and will help buy people off the plane. When they come to you and say, take a couple $100 and get the next flight, and for sure they'll get on. And they did. It was the best. Yeah. And that Rob Wells, like, oh my gosh, the amount of time he spent trying with me to figure out to make it work for them to come, long after when he should have said, buddy, it's not happening, like, we'll try another time. He was awesome. So he was good. And then just one more crazy story. This was neat. And the other thing is, when we get celebrities, I don't want to spend time with them, because any time they're spending with me, they're not with fans who are paying money to see them. So it's just like, hi, so nice of you to come, nice to meet you, thank you for coming. So but when Bobby Allison came up, Jim Bray, team owner, former racer, he knows a ton of people down in NASCAR country. So I think that was, again, at the PRI show in Indianapolis. One point he said, oh, would you like Bobby, to come to the show? I'm like, are you kidding? And I think it was around the time, not too long after his wife passed. So I spoke with his daughter, and she said, that's great. It'd be great if he can come. You just, if you like pick him up, personally, you take care of him. He's going to meet some people up there. He's got some friends. If you get him to church Sunday morning and stuff, and said, awesome, that'd be great. So I picked up Mr. Allison at the airport, got him set up in his hotel room. He was at the show, had a great time. It was such a thrill for everyone to meet him. Like, he was in the NASCAR Pinty Series booth, with all the guys in the big line with all the drivers signing autographs. Like, so cool. And it came for time for dinner that night, and I thought, we'll go to the Keg or something like that. And they don't take reservations, so I'm kind of like, oh. So Jim Bray was kind of there with me, and he said, oh, I've got an idea. So Jim has a long-time Italian restaurant sponsor down in, like, Port Credit, like Aielli's. I don't know if you've ever seen that on his car or heard of that, but I think Aielli's or Aiello's or something, but it's just like walking into like an old time Italian restaurant down in like near, I think Port Credit-ish, kind of down the, so we went down there, sat in that restaurant. It was so quiet, and it was just us. And Jim is a racing historian, so
Yes.
he'll talk your ear off. He's good. We're sitting there, and he starts to tee up these stories, asking Bobby Allison questions, saying like, "Oh, Bobby, I don't believe Greg knows the story of the time you were the first person to do 200 at Talladega." And it would get him going on these stories. Anyway, my jaw was on the ground. It was just like I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm hearing this. Like, so that for someone who makes a point of not spending time with the celebrities, like I was taking him to dinner like I was, but just such a personal thrill to meet him and spend that night with he and Jim.
Yeah, that you can't script those things, man. When they happen like that, they're the best for sure. And like you say, he's got a ton of stories. That would have been awesome for sure. Well, let's hope in 2022, buddy, we can get back to some of that at Motorama and get rid of this pandemic and move forward like we need to do. Just before I let you go, you've covered motorsports now for a long time, like you said, 23 years, and you've, like any business, there's ups and downs, but I'm curious, what condition did you see our sport in, our industry, prior to the pandemic, and how do you think we're going to come out of this?
Like, I think it's great. Like, to see what was built there at Jukasa, like to see the state of CTMP. You start to see and younger people, like generations. You've got it in your family. You've added another generation of racers, and the kids really seem engaged now. So for the Canadian scene and the APC series, the way it's going, it just seemed very healthy, and there's youngsters who are loving it, getting, putting down the phones and the games and the whatever, and really loving the racing and being part of it. So, and one thing, like I say, NASCAR at the Cup level, I think was kind of lost for a couple of years. Like, I'm still not a fan. I'm not a fan of the chase and like all that stuff. But
stages,
like it just seems contrived. But I don't know if that was a reaction to all the stars retiring, like big turnover they had. But it's getting fun again. Like, they've mixed it up. They're getting away from those mile and a half, handling tracks, cookie cutters, going to some neat places, racing on the dirt, doing some of these, Roval, different types of events. And the kids are starting to make names for themselves now. Like, you're following them, their rivalries, their personalities. So, like, I think that's coming around now. So, and then with the pandemic, I think people are going crazy waiting to get back. So if they took it for granted before, it's just, I think a lot of people can't wait to get back. It's safe. You're sitting in a wide open grandstand, having fun with your family, watching something fun, seeing your old friends. So I think there's going to be a real pop once it's allowed to open up again.
Yeah, I hope you're right. And I agree. I'd said this to many people, and I think I even said it to Joe Chisholm on his show last weekend, that I think before the pandemic, we were in the best spot we've been in maybe 10 to 15 years in this industry. And I'm not just talking about stock car racing oval track. There's another road course series starting up, whether that's good or bad. And the Maritimes is strong, and Quebec is always strong, and the Western guys are strong, and Trevor Siebert and his people buying Penticton and rebuilding that place. So I think the West needs that. When you get a guy like Trevor, plus this other track, Area 27, I think we were in such a great spot. And I don't think we've lost a whole lot. People are still building race cars. They're still fixing them. It seems like they're like horses in the barn. Can't wait to get out. And yeah, hopefully, and I think fans are too. There's going to be, I just hope some of our fans and some of our teams had fared well during the, financially, because there's going to be some people that definitely were affected differently or more so than others. So, but I agree. I think, I think we're in such a good spot across the board, and I can't wait till we can get rolling again and show everybody how strong the industry was.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I think it's healthy. A lot of people, like the pandemic has devastated a lot of people, and it's been great for a lot of people. It's like economically.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was on a conference call. It was like a Zoom thing with a bunch of manufacturers at SEMA a couple of months ago, and they're all big manufacturers who had, like, in racing and hot rod parts and that type of thing. But they all have good websites so they can handle online sales. And it'd be like Holly and like just 100% of them told me, and some of them were kind of sheepish about it because they felt bad, not bad, but like didn't want to crow at other people's misfortune. But every one of them said 2020 was the best year they've ever had for sales. So in equipment, what they're dealing with was people who still had money or jobs, who couldn't go on trips, couldn't go to fancy restaurants. You could go to your shop or your garage and work on your car and not get sick. So it was like it was a perfect storm for a lot of them, and they had great years. So and then hopefully with the fans and racers, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Maybe people are really looking forward to get back out, I think.
Yeah, no question. And once we get going here, I don't think there's any turning back, and I think that the future looks bright. I agree. Well, Greg, it's been great to meet you. We're just about out of time here. I just want to let you know that we appreciate the time that you spent with us. And thanks again for being on Driver in Deep. And let's just hope that things continue to get back to normal and the 2021 race season is a good one.
No, thank you guys so much for having me on, and good luck with your show. It seems like lots of fun. So I'm catching up on the episodes and really enjoying it. So good for you guys.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks for being on. Well, folks, we hope you enjoyed our interview with Greg, learning about things he and his team have going on. What is the best way for our listeners to support us, Mark?
You can visit Facebook and search for Wingnut Sports and join our page. Also, we're at Wingnut Sports on both Instagram and Twitter. And don't forget to visit our website at wingnutsports.com and make sure you check out our show notes for more information about today's episode and all the rest. And don't forget to like and follow us.
Yes, and like always, if you like what you hear here, please share with your friends, and we'll hopefully get them to start listening as well. This has been the Driver in Deep podcast with your hosts, Mark and Alex. Thanks for listening.
Well, we're wide open sideways.
All right, you're clear.
The talk is cheap.
You're clear on this.
We got the foot to the floor. There's only Driver in Deep.
Gonna be on the inside of you. All right, you're clear. Got a logo coming up on your inside. All right, you're clear. You're clear on this. Gonna be on the inside of you. All right, you're clear.